Good evening and welcome to the Nürburgring for the opening round of the TSRC, the Sim Racing Collective Tin Top Series here in 2024. My name is Edward Hunter. Alongside me in the commentary box is Nicholas Hillebrand, and of course we've got Mr. Sharp controlling the broadcast direction in the background. So opening round here at a very overcast and dare I say slightly smoggy looking circuit here in the Eiffel Mountains in Germany. We're in for quite the contest indeed. We have got a field of 18 TCR touring cars and 20 Porsche Carrera Cup cars. There's Jamie Nuttall in one of them, just going round the hairpin and uphill towards the Michael Schumacher S. Nicholas, we've got two classes of fantastic cars. They're going to be trying to negotiate here against each other with temperatures being slightly lower than expected and visibility being slightly lower than expected. It's going to be an interesting quali session here for the next 9 minutes, isn't it? As everyone tries to get that best lap in before the timer runs out.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you there. And, well, one of the best pairings in motorsports history, the Nürburgring and unexpected weather circumstances. I think that's a very good one, isn't it? But yeah, as we see here now, through the Viador chicane, the faster variant, actually, that is, well, it was the original one, and then they built the slower one because they thought it would promote overtaking a bit more. It's also promoting a little bit more, how would you say, spare parts sales in these kind of series. But yeah, Jamie Nuttall coming over the line now into the Mercedes arena, and yeah, it's just going to be a fantastic race. I think it's a short series. It's a very fun series though, because as you said, TCR, Porsche Cup cars, you know, two classes that were basically introduced with the sole focus on customer sport in real life, and through that they basically found appreciation around the globe and the according driver base that is eager to race these things.
Yep, certainly, and some of the best that TSRC has to offer have, of course, come back. You might remember Jamie Nuttall, of course, from the TSRC Endurance Championship, in which he drove in the hypercar prototype classes, and he won a couple of those races as well. Of course, you mentioned it's a short championship. We've got a 40-minute race here tonight after qualifying's over at the Nürburgring. Round 2 will be at Mosport Park, and then round 3 at Road America as well. So there's certainly 3 fantastic circuits here that we have to look forward to. I should also say that I've sort of been called up relatively late in the day to do this on, because James Parfitt was originally going to commentate on this. Unfortunately, James not feeling well. All the best to you, James, buddy, while you recuperate and rest. And I'll try and do the best I can in his stead as we look at, I believe this is Hayden Miller, I think, in the... No, it's the number 95, isn't it? Which is, of course, as I look down, it's Alex Cayon. I believe I pronounced the Italian's last name correctly there, Alex Cayon, in the black and green Porsche 911 then. Just going through the back end of the circuit. And, of course, as you say, the sudden weather conditions, we don't think there's any chance of rain then, as he's just going down the Hasenbeck's Boden, isn't he, at the back end of the circuit. Is Alex. But of course he was lighting up the timing screens in practice and looking to sort of carry through that form forward into qualifying. Here is he just about avoids the bollard at the chicane, as Hayden Miller has set the fastest lap so far. As Bobby Moss gets very close, so 1:59.437 the time to beat. Let's see what Alex Cayon can do as he goes towards the line. And it's going to be third fastest then. So 0.02 of a second behind Bobby Moss then, who's 0.04 of a second behind Hayden Miller then. So Hayden, Bobby, Alex tucked in very closely together. So that shows we got very competitive front of the order in the Porsche Carrera Cup.
Absolutely. You just love to see it. And of course, worth mentioning as well, everyone here is on fixed setup. Everyone has the exact same chances and even the same starting fuel, with the Porsche Cup car being on 38 liters and the TCRs being on 25. So, yeah, it's going to be It's going to be an eventful race, and it's definitely going to be a very interesting one as well, because we have 40 minutes here. Of course, qualifying. If you qualify well, it's a nice thing, but there's turn 1 to go through and turn 2, and then literally the rest of all of them around them. So I think it's always a bonus if you qualify well, but the guys that are a bit better in racing situations can also certainly profit around here on this fantastic circuit. Of course, Nürburgring itself was opened in 1927. This here is the new Grand Prix circuit, of course, which was opened in 1984. And, with the slight change that the Mercedes Arena replaced the Yokohama S, which was the old first chicane.
Yeah, and of course, in 1984, when they first opened the circuit, Mercedes did a special event, didn't they, with a bunch of their saloon cars, where they got a bunch of past and then present Grand Prix champions, race winners, and general to stars to just have a crack at it. Not everyone took it entirely seriously, but one man who was, of course, a rookie in Formula 1 at the time, who did take it seriously, won the whole event. As round goes the Pokemon liveried 455 of Moss. Oh dear, so Bobby Moss has got it very, very wrong. The only thing he's catching there is a big spin.
Yeah, better to catch a spin than to catch some suspension damage. There was a slight hit, but I think the rear fender caught that quite nicely. Now we've got one of the Velosters here. Also, I gotta be honest, as a Veloster owner myself of the first generation, I quite love this race car, and one of the few cars that actually has a asymmetrical lineup. So on the left side you have only one door, and on the right side you have two.
Yeah, so this is the number 75 TCR, of course, the Hyundai driven by Bastian Fuß. I believe I pronounced the Austrian's name correctly there, but Fuß comes to a stop there, having set the second fastest time, which of course is just 12 hundredths away from Tom Davidson in the number 42. Douglas Adams would be proud of that number to see that on top. But there we go, Tom Davidson in, I believe, another Hyundai Velociter, isn't he? The TSRC Esports entry. And Davidson, of course, was another front runner. I believe he might have actually been the eventual champion, wasn't he, in the TSRC Endurance Series? I sort of lost touch after the races I commentated on, admittedly, with everything else going on. But he definitely impressed numerous times, as indeed did Jamie Nuttall. So luckily, from Tom Davidson and Jamie Nuttall's perspectives, Jamie Nuttall's in the much faster Porsche Cup, so Tom Davidson won't have to deal with him too much, other than being lapped by him, I guess. Yeah, towards the end of the race.
Speaking of Jamie Nuttall, he just improves himself again. So right now, almost 7/10 clear of P2 in qualifying.
Almost like they're the two standouts, aren't they, Nicholas?
Yeah. I mean, these guys, Jamie always in one of those guys that you can never really count out of a win or a championship lead position. And once again here, showing very, very good pace.
And I just made an exclamation there because Alex Cayon, who we were looking at earlier, is just now 1,000th of a second, or 6,000ths, I think, strictly speaking, as you can see on the timing screen, behind Jamie Nuttall's best time, as Ryan Walker also improves to third. So Porsche Carrera Cups are really finding the time then, as we are into the final minute of qualifying. So anybody yet to put a lap on the board, if you look at Ronnie Richter, about 14 seconds off the overall pace, Ronnie Richter, but I think 1.4 for Grant Miller in 16th position in the TCR class. So plenty of time for the number 100 to find. In fact, he gets up to 14th, improves to a 2 minutes 10, which is about 3 seconds off of Tom Davidson's current provisional pole position time. So the pressure really on now, and these drivers cannot afford any mistakes if they want to start near the front of the grid here.
Yeah, and that's the thing, in the closing stages, it's always, of course, this switch around, because basically at the beginning of the session, you don't have as much grip. You don't really have the usedness, or, you're not too used to the conditions of the track necessarily. But, you still have plenty of time. So you do 1 or 2 banker laps, and then you're going, okay, no, I can just go for the last quick lap at the end of the session, and then all of a sudden those bankers turn out to be less than expected, and all of a sudden you're very, very under pressure. So yeah, it's a difficult balance to break, and here we have our starting grid now after this exciting session.
Indeed, so let's go for it then. Jamie Nuttall on pole position then for Cracked Racing from Alex Kayon. So this is, of course, the Porsche Carrera Cup. Ryan Walker will start third for Attitude Esports with Christian Ruzicka alongside him. Then it's William Hamling, the Luxembourg driver, in fifth position with Scott Warner in sixth just behind him. Fleming Jensen, the privateer, will start seventh ahead of fellow privateer Thomas Pieber. Hayden Miller will start ninth with Bobby Moss, the Nigel Mansell fan club driver who we saw spinning earlier, rounding out the top 10. Andrew Pike will start 11th, and then completing the top 12 will be Christian Camprega. In 13th, it will be Matt Cheverton for Aztec Racing. 14th will be Matt Acton in his own team, of course. Louis Hesketh rounds out the top 15. Then it is Wiardi Rombouts in 16th. Toby Prosser 17th. With Gabriel Yilmaz 18th. Martin Blankensteiner 19th, and our 20 Porsches rounded out by Pavel Bogan. And Tom Davidson, of course, will start in pole position in our TCR tin tops with Bostian Fuse alongside him. Then Nick Klibbins in third for iRacing Esports ahead of Tumas Kana, the Estonian. And is Joshua Charrington in fifth for Cranked Racing ahead of Liam Giles, his teammate. Then the other third Cranked Racing driver in the form of Paul Smith lines up seventh ahead of a fourth Cranked Racing driver in the form of Will Bradford in eighth. Gergely Kun Sabo will line up ninth for the Wild Things Racing team. Then Bart Raven rounds out the top 10. Joe Thomas will start 11th, and rounding out the top 12 in TCR will be Stefan Hooter. Behind Hooter, of course, will be, I believe, Joe Thomas. Joe Thomas starts, I think, just ahead of Hooter, which is why I was getting a little bit confused there. Behind Hooter should be Ronnie Richter, then Thomas Martin, Mav Gardner, Johnny Wu, Grant Miller, and David Barnes rounding out the field then. So the start imminent. What have we got to look out for, Nicholas?
Well, first corner, that is. Yeah, first corner will be an exciting affair with these cars, especially with the multi-class setting, but these cars also don't have ABS, so lockups can be aplenty as we're all waiting for the lights to go green.
Green flag.
Yep, here we go then. The red light's on, the field spreads out, and Jamie Nuttall leads away with Alex Kayon in the black and green car. Alongside him then the Porsche 911s come screaming into that first hairpin there as they go into the Mercedes-Benz arena. Nuttall holds the inside from Alex Kayon. Thomas Pieper is third. Louis Hesketh is up to fourth. There's been absolute pandemonium behind them, Nicholas, just out of frame.
Yeah, and this is one of these things. The Mercedes arena entrance, of course, one of these huge overtaking spots that you can take advantage of, as you can see them all going mainly into single file, but you can see how tightly everyone's together there. And I think that was P9 and P10. There was Scott Warner and Matt Cheverton actually being side by side as well, making a move into the next left-hander and now towards the Paget Racing curve.
Here we go. Oh, somebody going a little bit wide there. I think that's Louis Hesketh. He's been picked off by Hayden Miller. So Hesketh, after a brilliant first corner, is now starting to lose positions as we see Toby and Alex Kayon actually goes up the inside of Jamie Nuttall very, very briefly out of Dunlop. But now it looks like they're side by side as they go towards the Schumacher S. There they are then. And in fact, that's actually Toby Prosser in the number 41, isn't it? Being unable to get past Louis Hesketh as we see, oh, that looks like a visual glitch there. Or is that indeed Camprega and Hamling that have come together? Meanwhile, Tom Davidson, we've missed completely the TCR start, but Tom Davidson leads away very convincingly from Bostian Fuse, who's now got Nick Klibbins and Tumas Kana for close company then. So Davidson getting that Hyundai well clear of the pack, and it's Klibbins and the Audi that is actually putting the pressure on Fuse in the second of our Hyundais.
Absolutely. So, well, the Veloster trying to catch its younger but bigger brother, the Elantra, while being also chased by, well, one of the first cars that we got into that class, the RS3, but a very, very well-balanced overall car that is, well, quite stable, and also, you know, one of these sort of like compact sedans that we also get, as opposed to just purely the compacts like the Civic and the Veloster.
Oh, somebody in the gravel in the background. I think that might be Louis Hesketh in the 91. So
Yeah.
after a brilliant start, it's all starting to fall apart for poor Louis. And sadly, that's been all too common. So often some great pace from Louis Hesketh, but things not quite working out. And you see the fronts lock up, and that is just absolutely lethal at a tight corner like that, such low speed. And Hesketh almost sliding off. That's such a horrible feeling, isn't it, when that happens, because you feel so useless as Louis Hesketh slips down to 14th position, which is still one better than when he started. So that's how brilliant his start was, his ability to stay out of trouble there. But also not having a great first lap was Jamie Nuttall, because not only did Alex Keon get through, but Thomas Pieper, the Austrian in the number 111, has made a brilliant getaway to gain six places from where he started. So Pieper could be a big threat here, as we see Liam Giles in the middle of a huge scrap as he holds on to 8th position, and Fuse has dropped behind Clippens and Kana. So not a great second lap for Bastian Fuse.
We just have these huge trains forming across the fields, both in the Porsche and in the TCRs, and it's just great to see. You know, this is one of those circuits which is really quite well balanced between just trying to follow someone, but also the corners are all open enough so you can pretty much just take them too wide and not lose too much time in comparison.
Yeah, the only driver that seems to be making a break for at the moment is Tom Davidson at the head of the TCR field. 3 seconds clear of Nick Clippens now, and Clippens has very much got his hands full of Thomas Kana and a somewhat resurgent-looking Bastian Fuse, having lost 2 positions, eager to gain them back as Thomas Pieper sets the fastest lap of the race as he tries to chase down Keon, the Italian leading the Porsche Carrera Cup class at the present moment.
Yeah, and that is also some pressure, I'd say. Well, not too much anymore because Ryan Walker dropped back a little bit, but just early in the lap he was pretty much right on the tail of Jamie Nuttall. It's always one of these things, you know, these cars all pretty much don't have driving aids. That makes all these maneuvers even a lot more interesting as well.
Will Bradford has got by Liam Giles, and Paul Smith as well has been able to slot himself through at the end of the chicane as they go out through the Coca-Cola curve, the final corner here at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. And Liam Giles was hoping to hold on to that 6th position. He slipped back down to 8th then. So the 2 cracked cars sandwiching, I believe, Thomas Martin, I believe, in the Shadow Drake is now 1 second behind. So all 5th all the way through to 8th is cracked racing cars, effectively. So instead of moving forward, they're all fighting against each other a little bit, trying to prove that they're the best member of that team, as they should be, and putting on a fantastic show. Meanwhile, Pieper continues to close on Alex Keon in the lead. So we could have our 3rd different leader in the overall lead of the race within the first 5 minutes, which would be pretty spectacular in the first race of the season, Nicholas.
Absolutely. And speaking of 3rd, you mentioned cracked racing. They basically, well, quite literally provide a 3rd of the TCR, or over a 3rd even, because that's 7 out of 18 cars that are all from that team.
It's a little bit like Ford at Le Mans in the 60s. If you put enough cars in the race, you stack the deck in your favor. So, interesting. Look at this. Jamie Nuttall has upped his pace and is now only 2 tenths behind Thomas Pieper, who remains about 6 tenths behind Alex Keon, who actually gained 2 tenths on the Austrian there. And there's Jamie Nuttall looking to the outside at the Mercedes-Benz Arena, trying to cut back up the inside of Thomas Pieper. So Pieper has to get defensive now, and Alex Keon will be enjoying this, because the more they fight, the better it is for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you gotta admit that pace from Nuttall at the moment. So everyone's doing their own personal bests right now. Pretty much Pieper was a little bit, like less than half a tenth below that. But Nuttall still a tenth clear of pretty much everyone else in the top pace right now. He's all over the back of Pieper. And, you know, obviously he's trying to make a move. They're not dropping back from Keon too much, but of course, Nuttall, he's going to be upset at himself with that start. He's going to want to get back into first place as quickly as possible, as we have Guillaume Hamling coming out of the pits as, I think, the first one to actually make a pit stop.
Yeah, interesting if that was a strategy call. It may indeed have been a penalty that we didn't see, for perhaps for cutting track limits one time too many or something of that nature. But yeah, whatever the reason, Hamling has come out right at the rear of a train of TCR cars that will be looking to clear very, very quickly. It looks like, unfortunately, as we see Blankensteiner there, who's lost a couple of places. We see Wiardi Rombouts dropping down the order as well. So I think it was Rombouts we saw having a tricky moment in the background there as he drops to 15th position then. So yeah, lots of drama, but I think what I was going to say was Christian Camprega and Pavel Bogdan both seem to be out. So here's a replay of what happened to Rombouts in the number 18, the Dutch driver, going uphill then. And yeah, the back end just got away from him there. It was just a little bit too deep into the Michelin curve, wasn't it?
Yeah, just tries to carry a little bit too much momentum in there, and I think that corner is a little bit deceiving as well. Like, yeah, the corner is quite deceiving as well because it's a little bit on canvas, so you have quite a lot of grip for the most part. And as soon as it evens out, as soon as you get past the apex, you know, it starts to slightly shift in camber. It starts to, you know, tighten a little bit as well. And on the outside, you're basically thinking, okay, well, there's tarmac runoff. It's nothing too bad. And all of a sudden, you're going around.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we cut back to Stefan Hutter, who's got his mirrors absolutely filled with Mav Gardner in the Castrol livery 805, TSRC Esports driver. Gardner, of course, another regular in the endurance series as Hutter goes all over the curb, gets completely sideways, and oh dear. And Hutter and Gardner make huge contact there at the final corner, and that was really, really unfortunate. Looks like Thomas Martin got caught up in that as well. And you really saw that one coming from a long way back, didn't you, Nicholas?
Yeah, that was maximum curb usage, and unfortunately, it just threw the rear end a little bit too far out. You know, generally in these TCR cars, the wonderful thing is, oh, the car's going sideways. Well, it's a front-wheel drive. It's in German we call it Frontkratzer, front scratcher, because you're basically just scratching away at the tires. And yeah, just a little too much, and not at that point, like you can't put enough throttle in and just keep steering where you want to go to save the car. That was just a bit too much rotation from that massive jump over that Alton plate.
Yes, it was Martin who lost it in front of Hutter, and then there was a little bit of contact. Luckily, Mav Gardner, I don't think, was affected too much by that, although Joe Thomas has just got past him. Having said that, as we see, Pieber has upped his pace once again. He was 2 tenths quicker than Alex Keon. He's pulled away, actually, from Jamie Nuttall. So Nuttall's starting to struggle to live with the pace of the two leaders in front of him as we look at Martin crawling around with what's now a very, very damaged rear end of that car.
Yeah, luckily it was, you know, relatively a shallow hit. It wasn't too hard of a direct hit that he took. So, you know, it's still, I'd say, on the more lenient end. So I think he could basically just limp it back pretty much within the sort of like pit stop window, so to say, and try to salvage the race or what it is. But very quickly as well, from what you mentioned at the Porsche Cup lead, all 4 of them did their own personal best last lap. And it's just incredible. These guys just keep getting faster and faster and faster. And I think Alex Keon and Pieber, they've really just found a little bit of extra bit of personal rhythm, having that, you know, shackles of Jamie Nuttall being in first place removed from them.
Oh, and Blankensteiner round at Dunlop and in the gravel. He just gets it going again there, but that looked a little bit like he either went a bit too deep or got pushed out wide there and has fallen back down to 12th. So Blankensteiner has had a pretty eventful last couple of laps, going everywhere from between 7th and now down to 12th. But yeah, certainly he just needs to calm it down a little, get some clean laps in. But that's easier said than done when you've got a field of very, very eager Porsche Carrera Cup drivers to negotiate here. We also have a comment in from Billy Bob, number 55, from Hillbilly Racing. He says, good luck Hayden Miller and good luck Nick Clibbins. So Hayden Miller down in 15th position, of course, in the Carrera Cup. And in TCR, Nick Clibbins still running in a very creditable 2nd position, holding off boss Jan Fuse, who got past Tumas Kana a couple of laps ago. as we now look at Christian Ruzicka, who had a horrible start to the race from 4th on the grid, fell well down the order, and is now back up to 9th, having cleared Bobby Moss, who is still right on his tail and is now trying to get on terms with Fleming Jensen just ahead of him. But here comes Bobby Moss, and the Pokemon guy around the outside is one of the TCR cars, comes out of the pits and desperately tries to get out of the way there. But yeah, Christian Ruzicka in the Australian Sim Racers team negotiates it well, and with the privateer continuing on his recovery drive.
Yeah, and meanwhile, a few positions further up ahead, just a couple 100 meters on track, Andrew Pike and Toby Prosser still going at it. Prosser actually having gained 11 positions, so an incredibly good start from him. Right on the diffuser of Pike, now coming down towards the Goodyear-Kehre, or well, Müllenbach-Schleife, whatever you want to call it. I have to say, this is probably the circuit with the most name changes for corners that I've had in memories in the last 20 years, because constantly just people buying, the corner names anew.
Fastest lap of TCR for Bosjan Fuse as he chases down Nick Clippins, but look at Andrew Pike under attack from Toby Prosser. Prosser's got the inside, tries to push Andrew Pike wide, but Pike holds the inside for the Vorsteiner curve as they still go side by side down the Hasenbeck's Boden. Andrew Pike has found himself outmaneuvered as Toby Prosser just simply goes around the outside of him there. That was aggressive from Prosser there to get through, and Toby Prosser has gained 12 positions to Andrew Pike's 5. And Andrew Pike very, very keen to get through here. And this happened to Blanksteiner. So he hit the back of whoever was in front of him and then got spun around there in the number 96. So it was a little bit unfortunate there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a mix, because the difficulty is, we've got the TCRs with front engine front wheel drive and the Porsche with rear engine rear wheel drive, which funnily enough have relatively similar behavior when you lift off the throttle in the middle of the corner, because the Porsches are basically one big pendulum. You always have to balance them with the throttle. And of course, when you're already braking hard into the corner, like Blankensteiner did just there, and then you hit, so the weight shifts even more, all of a sudden the rear end just goes, oh, cool, direction change. Yeah, the car behind couldn't go anywhere, I think, so.
The other thing to consider is we have 4 TCR cars that have been lapped by the leaders in the Porsche class already. 15, just under 50, yeah, exactly 15 minutes into the race, there we go. So the more the Porsches are going to have to negotiate the TCRs, the more likely is you're going to see trains form behind them. And we've seen Thomas Pieber, I think, take advantage of that to occasionally close within half a second of Alex Kayon, as we look at Liam Giles in 7th in the TCR class, holding off Will Bradford and Grant Miller as well. So Will Bradford giving Liam Giles in that Hyundai a very, very hard time as he gets very, very close to tapping the back of him as they fight over 7th position on lap 8 of the race.
Yeah, very close indeed. It's all over the back of him. That Honda is basically right on the tail of that. Veloster, they're going down into the first corner, tries to move around the outside, but can't quite get it done. You have to get a bit more overlap and a bit more momentum through that, but it's not an easy task for sure, because the corner just drops off right at the apex.
Yeah, and Will Bradford was 2/10 quicker than Liam Giles the previous lap then. But they've also got, of course, Grant Miller closing up behind him, who had a bad lap the last lap and has started to recover as we cut to the Porsche Carrera Cup. And here's Riardo Rombouts trying to get past Louis Hesketh, who's done pretty well, actually, admittedly, to hold on to the top 10 despite not really having the raw pace of those around him. He's had some good racecraft here. Rombouts is forced to go the long way round as they go into the first corner and into the Mercedes-Benz arena. And the Dutchman, who has also not really had an ideal start to the race, has he? Rombouts, he started down in 16th, has gained about 4 positions, and I believe this is actually a Hayden Miller he's fighting with. I think Louis Hesketh is another 2 seconds up the road, isn't he, as they're about to lap the number 11, which is Gurgly Kunsabo, of course, just being picked off there in the Wild Thing racing car.
Oh, who's that behind them? Right behind Rumbout.
It's Matt Acton.
Yeah, that was almost into the side of Gonçalves Elantra there. Very good reactions from him to pull out of that in the last second. And ooh, that's a nice historical livery.
Yeah, Jägermeister. So it's action stations for Matt Acton, appropriately enough. And as you can tell, he didn't want to be stuck behind that Hyundai for any longer than he had to. But of course, now that he's cleared, he's got open road in front of him, and he's going to catch back up to the battle before too long. But meanwhile, here is the battle up front between Nick Klibbens and Bastian Fuchs for second. So Bastian has been matching Nick Klibbens, was catching him the last couple of laps, but now he's sort of caught up to the Audi. He's found himself with a bit of a brick wall of an obstacle, and that's really allowed Tom Davidson to escape up the road to the tune of nearly 5 seconds now, with almost half the race completed. So Fuchs, if he wants to win this one, it's absolutely imperative that he clears Nick Klibbens, because Klibbens is lapping about a tenth slower than Tom Davidson. I think Fuchs could potentially go a little bit quicker if he could clear Klibbens.
Yeah, you can see that his fastest lap is 2/10 faster than even Davidson. But if he can't get past Klibbens, it's all for nothing. Lap time is one thing. Actually, getting around the other cars on track is the other thing. And speaking of pure lap time and getting around the other cars, here's Alex Kayon, our overall leader. My goodness me, that was a bit of a close one, wasn't it? Quick Honda Civic jump scare there.
That was Liam Giles just getting out of the way in time there.
Yeah. Basically, I think Giles was already turning in, and then all of a sudden, ooh, that's a Porsche. Better leave the door open a little bit there. But we also had a quick
Look at
chat
Jamie
here.
Nuttall. Jamie Nuttall's caught right back up to Pieper. As a result of this, there they are. You see Pieper in the black and white car. All around goes Nuttall.
With a teammate. It's the big no-no rule.
I think that was Liam Giles, wasn't it? It was either Giles or Miller, wasn't it? No, Bradford. It was either Bradford or Giles that he made contact with there while trying to lap them. And he just found himself going around there as he was so eager to get up the inside of Thomas Pieper that he ended up losing 7 seconds instead of gaining position. So here they are. Giles in number 29 on the outside. Nuttall goes a little bit deep, but isn't quite clear, I think. So that was just really unfortunate for both parties.
Yeah, I think he had a slight front lock-up, and that basically just moved him into the side of the Civic, and yeah. I mean, luckily he didn't also take out his teammate there for a big chunk of time, but obviously not the lapping maneuver that you want to see, and of course for him and with his own teammate as well, especially across different teams and classes. Classes, not teams. It's just one of those things, where you get really frustrated with either yourself or just with the situation there. But that's racing. It can very quickly escalate like that, and yeah.
We see the first of the top 10 to pit. Scott Warner pits from 8th, which promotes Christian Ruziker into that position. He's now 4 tenths behind Matt Cheverton, so Ruziker continuing his recovery. But yeah, I think, is this going to be a race where we're going to see a lot of pit stops for fresh tyres, especially in the Porsche Cup, or is this a case of getting to the end and Warner is sort of just playing it safe by halfway through pitting for fresh tyres and fuel?
I think, honestly, the tyres you can probably run down to the end. The fuel, of course, that's a bit more difficult to run without. But, yeah, these guys are obviously going to look a little bit as well, because one of the big things, especially in the Porsches, is, of course, the balance of the car overall with different fuel loads. So these guys could potentially also try to go for a bit of a bigger, or a bit of an earlier refuel, basically because they're more comfortable with a bit more weight on the front, because normally with our racing cars, we have the fuel tank towards the rear and, the engine in the front. Here, it's a bit tricky because the engine's already in the rear, so you have the fuel tank at the front. So, of course, a little bit extra weight on the front axle helps you a little bit with the cornering as they go through the Advanbogen, now up the hill towards the Vidol chicane. And not quite too wide, but keeping us on our toes.
Yes, Ruziker really giving Cheverton a hard time then, but Cheverton responds brilliantly. Meanwhile, Tom Davidson has pit from the TCR lead. We do see support in the chat. Shroom1 that says, come on, Tom D. And there's some other comments from Teckles does sim racing. He says, rumor has it Alex has to run with extra ballast to avoid breaking the sound barrier in qualifying. That's Alex Kaon, of course. And he also says Scott Warner broke his shifter when caught in Alex's weight during practice. So the ultimate Mario Kart banana skin move to psychically reach into your opponent's gear and break their gearing stick to stop them shifting. But there is Tom Davidson. He emerges from his pit stop in 6th, but of course he should still be in the net lead of the race once those ahead pit. But it does promote Nick Clibbens into the lead as he still holds off Bostian Fuchs by 7/10 of a second. As we look at Ruzicka, still, I think, trying to find a way past Cheverton. No, he has found a way past Cheverton while we were looking away at Tom Davidson. So here is Bobby Moss. What has the Pokemon car gotten itself into now? Over the curb into the final corner. Where it says the driver name, it literally says Ash Ketchum. And he discovers the 26 turned around in front of him of Gabriel Yilmaz. So something happened to Yilmaz just before as he's trying to lap the number 11. And that would be Gregory Kunstabo then.
That was an odd one because it looked like a hit from the TCR on the outside. So not even from the rear really. So yeah, maybe somehow with the steering input, the tires had made direct contact and basically threw that Porsche around. But either way, Ash Ketchum still not making it to the Pokemon League, unfortunately, and seemingly, well, has DNF'd, I think.
Yeah, him, Louis Hesketh, Martin Blankensteiner have both all retired, along with Christian Kempreger and Pavel Bogdan, who did not get beyond the first lap. We also see Nick Clibbens and is that Joshua Charrington joining him in the pits as well. So Clibbens is pit from the lead, which promotes Fuse into the lead at 7 seconds out of Tumas Kana. So Fuchs has really pulled away from Kana, and that really shows you the stint that he's had. Tom Davidson now is already back up to 3rd after making his pit stop. So Clibbens is going to emerge about 5 seconds behind Davidson as we see more of the TCR leaders pitting. So clearly these drivers are really, really worried about running out of fuel, running out of tires at the end before too long, and they really want to come in before they start hemorrhaging time.
That's of course the difficult part, they're trying to just find their rhythm, of course, when to perfectly pit. Johnny Wu with a very abrupt turn to the right as well, pretty much getting reminded, oh boy, in fact my pit box is here already. And I think it's just a really difficult thing to gauge. We have so many cars on track. We started with 38 cars, and even though this is a 5.1 kilometer circuit, so decently sized, traffic is always a thing, especially in these pit phases. You can very quickly run into traffic and lose quite a lot of time. So I'm still excited to see where Tom Davidson will come out in the end.
24 seconds behind the lead at the moment. So he's definitely within Fuchs' pit window, and his lap times, obviously having just come out of the pits, but he is matching Fuchs in the middle sector. So we'll have to see how that works out. We did get a message from Bobby Moss who says, I was black flagged 4 times for tiny contact plus whatever happened turn 1. So Bobby Moss clearly feeling a little bit hard done by as we see the Porsche Carrera Cup leaders all in the pits at the same time. Kaon, Pieber, Nuttall and Walker. Walker was actually within 2 seconds of Nuttall as well. So maybe Jamie Nuttall had some damage after that contact with his teammate earlier on, Liam Jarvis.
Prost as well, Ruzicka as well, Cheverton as well. Everyone's coming in. It's the Smash Ultimate of pit stop phases. Miller as well, Rumbat as well.
And our 2 TCR leaders, Fuchs and Kana. So that's surely going to promote Tom Davidson back into the lead. But the interesting one would be where Nick Clibbens emerges relative to Fuchs.
Yeah, that's not the difficult thing to gauge because, well, we can't really see it right now. We have Ronnie Richter on the camera, but Clibbens now making his way down the front stretch, and that in front of him is Bostian Fuchs. So Fuchs definitely fast enough in the in-between time between his pit stop and his rivals. There's now 7.4 second gap, so Davidson really using that earlier pit stop to his advantage, gaining even more time. And yeah, that's definitely a sizable gap to catch. And I think unless there's something happening, Davidson should be fine for now,
Yeah.
at least.
It was a really good in-lap for Bastian Fuchs. Pretty close to his best, actually. But there's David Barnes. He is fighting Thomas Martin, who we saw in the wars earlier, for 14th position then. So it looks like two Brits for Buy-Around Racing and Shadow Drake Racing, respectively, doing battle just outside the top 10. And they're taking Ronnie Richter and Johnny Woo, who we just saw in the pits with them. You see Buy-Around Racing have got not necessarily alcohol sponsorship, but definitely a big picture of a pint of beer on the side of the car. It's a little bit like the Jägermeister livery, I guess, but because David Barnes' own version. The yellow cars here in this battle, isn't it? So not the easiest to tell apart from a distance, but Barnes definitely putting on the pressure, and Thomas Martin has got to make sure he hasn't had a few before doing this one, doing his pit stops. We see Prosser negotiating the traffic. This is him still battling away with Andrew Pike. Pike has done very, very well to keep Prosser in range for such a long time, hasn't he? And Toby Prosser, to his credit, has not put a foot wrong so far.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And especially with that entire pit stop phase, normally it's overcut, undercut, whatever strategy you see fit to try and get past, and then the top 9 all just come in at the same time. Yeah, quite an interesting take, of course. And Pike getting quite close on the braking. Maybe even losing a bit of momentum there because he got a bit too close for his own liking. And of course Prosser using that to run away as quickly as possible again. It's always this push and pull, this accordion effect, basically a harmonica effect, I think it's properly called, where you are basically constantly this growing and shrinking gap around different parts of the circuit.
Yeah, I think I've also heard it called the concertina effect, which is probably my favorite one, as we see Liam Giles under attack, attacking Paul Smith in front of him in that blue, purple and bright green livery. Very, very distinctive on Paul Smith's cracked racing car. So he got a slightly different livery to his teammate here to help tell them apart, of course, but the number 29 challenging the number 33, and Paul Smith in a very, very credible 6th position in TCR, by the way. All of the top 5 are exactly where they started on the grid because, of course, Fuchs having that difficult start and being able to overcut Nick Clibbins to regain position means that everyone is roughly where I suppose they would have expected to be before the carnage that we saw, at least in Carrera Cup. We didn't quite see what happened in TCR. But yeah, it's only really Paul Smith has been the big gainer, gaining that. Him and Liam Giles are the only ones who really swap positions there. So we see Ronnie Richter all trying to go around the outside then.
And they're making it 3 wide on the way to the next one.
So Johnny Woo then up to 16th, trying to have a go at David Barnes up the inside, but no room there. Across the grass goes Ronnie Richter. Oh dear, so Ronnie getting it very, very wrong indeed. And dropping down to 18th and last behind Joe Thomas then, as Johnny Woo continues to challenge David Barnes. And Johnny Woo is probably going to be saying his surname at maximum volume as he sees himself up to 16th position. Here's a replay of Jamie Nuttall into that first hairpin, the number 14. What happens to Jamie? The rear end gets away from him, and frustration, I think, creeping into Jamie Nuttall because Ryan Walker has passed him for 3rd position.
I think slight rear lockup as he's just going down. You can see how far it goes actually downhill there. How the corner basically leans down, and past that hairpin you literally just pretty much jump off a small cliff down to the tarmac below. And yeah, you can very easily either lock the fronts as we saw from Louis Haskett in turn 1, like quite literally on lap 1. And the rears as well, as it turns out. So really unlucky, and of course he'll be kicking himself over that. He was trying to catch back up to Pieper in front, but yeah, it just went from bad to worse. For Ryan Walker, it's gone a lot better, and meanwhile it's getting a lot more heated in the back of the field.
Yes, I think that was Matt Acton once again into forward curve, braking as late as he dared as Cheverton is really feeling held up behind the number 75 of Bostian Fuchs, who he just laps there. And you could tell Cheverton really does not want to get in a battle with Scott Warner and Matt Acton, but they're both closing just under 3/10 is the gap between Warner and Cheverton, as this is the fate of the 7-up of Pavel Bogdan, the Slovakian. Oh, just looping it round in the Mercedes-Benz Arena. Lucky not to collect anybody as he tries desperately to reverse out of the way as neatly as possible onto the grass. Just about avoids the wall and then gets going again. But yeah, Pavel Bogdan, I think, retiring very, very early on in this race. The first of our retirements, and this is what happened to Gabriel Yilmaz spinning across the pit entry. And yeah, Yilmaz was definitely facing the wrong way a couple of times during his race as well.
Ooh, almost actually spinning the wheels to bring the rear end of the car in front of the car that was trying to pass him by there. So yeah, good reactions from everyone on their rejoins there overall. We have Matt Cheverton here still being chased by Warner, taking, well, pretty much just eating that bollard for breakfast there. Meanwhile, we still have our three-way fight here for position in TCR for 15th place in class. Johnny Wood trying to cover inside, outside, trying to cover everywhere where he can as they go through beer curve. Nowadays Bildstein curve, but it's been named Warsteiner, Krombacher, Bitburger, everything under the sun at this point of a German beer brand. And yeah, so beer curve stuck the most on the fans.
Remind me, Nicholas, still points get down to 15th? Because if so, this could be a much more significant battle than maybe we realize. I assumed it was...
no, they go down to 20th, it's fine.
Okay, they all get points. Just more points for higher positions, obviously. Johnny Woo closes right up to the back of David Barnes, and he's hoping he has a few more pints in the back of that car to throw at Johnny Woo to keep him at bay, as Joe Thomas also tucks into his slipstream too. So it's going to be side by side between Woo and Thomas then, with David Barnes just fending both of them off then into that first corner. Around the outside goes Joe Thomas. Johnny Woo a little bit tentative on the throttle, and a fantastic move from Joe Thomas to get up to 16th position.
Yeah, of course, Wu also working against two Hondas in tandem there. So, you know, no slipstream. The Hondas are working together there and getting a better run through the corner. If you take it a bit wider, of course, through turn one, you can apply a bit more throttle. So Thomas used the strength of his car there perfectly, as now he's getting caught out by the defending Honda ahead, while the Elantra is trying to make a comeback, and now comes a Porsche as well. That's the number 95 of Kayon, our overall leader, who, well, he has a quite sizable gap, but I'm sure that he's still not too happy being stuck behind the 5th position.
Just lost a second to Piva, so...
Yeah, that's the thing, you know? Traffic giveth, traffic taketh away.
Indeed it does, and it was ever fast as well. As we see Matt Acton in 14th position, trying to get past Guillaume Hamling. Luxembourg in the Endurance TSRC series was one of the few to go for in GD3 for the Lamborghini. Guillaume Hamling, to good effect, was able to get a few podiums with it. But Matt Acton definitely making an impression on him at the present moment, as they are about a second and a half behind the Cheverton-Warner battle for 11th. So yeah, Matt Acton having, I think, just been passed by Hamling, looking to regain that position. But another battle that's heating up in the Porsche Cup is Jamie Nuttall, after his spin at the first corner, has now closed back to within half a second of Ryan Walker. You see it on screen at the moment. Jamie Nuttall was about 4/10 quicker than Ryan Walker the previous lap, so he's got to find a way past the altitude esports. I need to say attitude esports, but certainly it's high up rather than bad attitude for Ryan Walker here, who's driven a very, very clean race. He's taken advantage of Jamie Nuttall's mistake, but you get the feeling Nuttall has kind of underachieved so far in this race and really wants to salvage things by getting himself back onto the podium.
And I think
that's 4/10 quicker.
That's also one of those things, though, you know, he's doing personal best, of course, Walker in front of him as well. Both of them at the edge of their pace right now, but, you know...
Only 4 minutes left in the race as well.
Yeah, and staying clean in the end is the more lucrative way to go fast than just peak lap time. And yeah, with not all, I think there's also just a lot of pressure now. You know, he knows, okay, I qualified on pole position. This was basically in the bag normally. And then one mistake at the start basically just throws him back that far. And the frustration, I think, plays a big part there, as we see Bart Raven battling it out with the Castrol liveried Honda Civic Type R of Gardner.
Yeah, Mav Gardner definitely trying to put pressure on Raven. Raven and Gardner, appropriate names, isn't it? With a man named after a bird and a man named after the back garden, essentially. But I'm sure Mav Gardner will not care one bit if he can clear the Raven. But Bart Raven has certainly... he's another driver that's exactly where he started in this race, in 10th position, whereas Mav Gardner started down in 15th, has gained 4 positions, as has Grant Miller behind us, also gained 5 positions as well. So they're the big gainers in TCR. As it said, just like Ryan Walker, they've done that by mainly staying out of trouble, and Walker continues to be really, really under pressure, as indeed does Paul Smith, fighting to hold on to 6th from his teammate Liam Giles. But here comes Mav Gardner up the inside into the first corner. Surely Bart Raven is going to be stranded on the outside in the similar Honda Civic. Tries to throw it in as deep as he can. That will give him the inside once they get to Mercedes-Benz Arena. And there is the race leader, Alex Kaon, looking to lap both of them. Gardner, though, is still just about alongside the rear wheel, but decides to tuck in at maximum to the inside. Wide goes Bart Raven. And can Mav Gardner sweep around the outside? Yes, he can. Bart Raven knew the jig was up, and he lets Alex Kaon through for good measure too. So very, very well planned in advance from Mav Gardner there, and 10th position is his.
Absolutely beautiful work there. You know, we had the over and under, and then we had the over and under and over and under and over and under and over. Absolutely fantastic job there.
And more good racecraft from Christian Ruziger as he picks off Toby Prosser for 6th position. So he split up the Pike-Prosser battle, hasn't he? And that really shows Ruziger has had to do the hard graft, hasn't he? He dropped a long way back after the collision at the first corner and has really been fighting, possibly against some damage as well. We don't know for sure. And in fact, that's Fleming Jensen now that's fallen into his clutches too, behind Andrew Pike. As here we go. This is what happened to Toby Prosser. Oh, he's done exactly what Jamie Nuttall did, didn't he?
Yeah, slightly lost the rear end over the crest there, and yeah, that's just going to mess you up. Luckily, no big damage there, I think.
And Jensen in trouble. Ruziker's passed, and look, he's alongside Prosser now. Jensen has got the inside for the Schumacher S, and Prosser can see Ruziker disappearing up the road and is desperate to follow him through. Can't let the orange car driven by the Dane Jensen get in the way, but Alex Kaon is about to cross the line and complete a fantastic victory in the number 95. A brilliant start to the season for the Italian. He takes victory from Thomas Pieper. Ryan Walker is going to hold off Jamie Nuttall if he can just get ahead with just one more corner to go. There they go then. And Thomas Pieper definitely very, very happy with that, gaining 6 positions, as indeed will Andrew Pike if he can just cross the line in a few seconds' time. But here is Tom Davidson. He only has half a lap now to negotiate as well. If you look at Ruziker in the last lap, going from 8th to 6th. Fantastic resolve from the number 63, the Austrian, doing a fantastic comeback. And he's even got the Austrian flag down the middle as a lovely sort of racing stripes for his car as well. I didn't notice that before. Here comes the Brit, Tom Davidson, leading from start to finish. He's had the cleanest race, it must be said. And has not really been troubled at all by either Clibbins or Fuchs behind him. 7.6 seconds is going to be the margin. The man in the Bristol Street Motors Hyundai through the final chicane towards the Coca-Cola corner comes Tom Davidson, and he's going to start the season in emphatic style. Victory for the TSRC esports driver. And that is going to be very, very sweet for the number 42. Tom Davidson is going to be delighted with that one.
Absolutely. Fuchs, the Austrian, brings it to P2 in front of Clibbins after that undercut, well, overcut actually, in the pit stop phase, as we have the last couple cars now
It's
Well,
Joshua
I think
Charrington holding up a
fourth
train,
is
isn't it?
finished. Yeah,
So
that's
Joshua
what
Charrington
P5
is
then
going
in
to
the
hold
end.
on to fifth from Paul Smith and Liam Giles, who were pretty much locked together throughout. And they're flashing
Almost
the lights.
bump drafting.
Yeah, all three teammates, of course, having a fantastic fight for fifth then, and a couple of seconds ahead of Liam Bradford. And there's Gurgly Kunsabo, the last, I think, of our finishes in TCR. A bit of a eventful race for Kunsabo, so certainly not boring, but he does at least get to the end and bank some good points. Certainly living up to the name of the Wild Thing Racing team, isn't he?
He can't really do donuts, so he's just gonna, have a couple tire marks on the ground.
I think he's
however he
perfectly
can.
capable of doing donuts, but I think he is feeling a little too wild for that right now. But yeah, fantastic opening round to the season, and an Austrian finishes second in both classes in the form of Pieper and Fuchs. So both of them will be absolutely delighted with that, especially Fuchs after that difficult start to his race. But here we go then. Here is the TCR class, but actually we want to see the Porsches first. So it's Alex Keon, didn't start on pole, but was able to get past Jamie Nuttall early doors and then pulled that gap to Thomas Pieper, winning by 9.2 seconds in the end. A peerless drive from Alex Keon in the end. Pieper did pretty well to hold on to second. Ryan Walker taking an unexpected podium for Altitude Esports, just holding off Jamie Nuttall by the skin of his teeth. And Nuttall is going to be kicking himself after that one. I think he knows he let a bit of a podium slip away from him there. Andrew Pike was fifth for TSRC Esports. Then it was Christian Ruziker in sixth from Fleming Jensen, Toby Prosser, Hayden Miller, and Riyadi Rombounce rounding out the top 10. Then final two finishers on the lead lap were Matt Cheverton and Matt Acton, who certainly brought the action today. A lap down in 13th was Scott Warner, then Guillaume Hamling, Gabriel Yilmaz, the final finisher in the Porsches. Not making to the end of the race, sadly, was Bobby Moss, Louis Hesketh, Martin Blankensteiner, Christian Camprega, and Pavel Bogdan. So a shame for them. Let's hope they have better luck next time out at Mosport Park, of course. Meanwhile, here is the TCRs. So heading the tin tops is Tom Davidson here, 7.5 seconds ahead of Bastien Fuchs. So Davidson led from start to finish every lap apart from when he had to pit, of course, being the first pitter. So that did allow Klippens and Fuchs to lead a lap each respectively. But other than that, Tom Davidson did not relinquish his grip. Fuchs, awful start to the race, it must be said, but he recovered fantastically to overcut Klippens using some excellent pace there. Tumas Kana, bit of a quiet one for him, 23 seconds in arrears, but he does still finish comfortably ahead of Joshua Charrington, who triumphed in the four-way cracked racing battle between himself, Paul Smith, Liam Giles, and Will Bradford, who all finish in that order, 5th through to 8th. Then Gurgly Kunsabo was the last man on the lead lap in 9th in the Wild Thing Racing's car. Mav Gardner rounds out the top 10 a lap down ahead of Bart Raven after that late move. Grant Miller takes 12th from Stefan Huter. Thomas Martin takes 14th from Johnny Woo. Then it's Ronnie Richter, David Barnes, and Joe Thomas, with all of our TCRs getting it to the end of the race, which is fantastic to see. So the finishing order dispensed with. Now we see the waiting room just starting to fill up, but just immediate thoughts on that one, Nicholas.
Well, this is the thing that I always have here at TSRC. I'm thinking, okay, 40-minute race. We've got a bit of time. We've got time to look at battles. We've got time to look at some info about the track, the cars, and all that stuff. And we get absorbed into one battle, and then there's another battle, and oh, there's another battle. And all of a sudden, these 40 minutes are just over. And yeah, it's just always great with this community. Because these guys, they know how to deliver a fantastic way to keep us entertained and exciting and fair racing. So yeah, even with all the fog, everyone certainly saw where they were going, and well, they certainly see more than we can see off the track right now.
Yes, I'm sure for Joshua Charrington, though, with those train of his teammates behind him, the race could not have ended soon enough. By contrast, I'm sure for Jamie Nuttall, he would have loved a few more laps to try and take that podium back off of Ryan Walker. But we do have one driver in the waiting room who's been waiting very patiently, and that is our 9th place finisher in the Porsche Cup, and that is Hayden Miller, who joins us now. So, Hayden, uh, bit of a crazy first race of the season here at the Nürburgring. In the end, you finish exactly where you started, but it was a bit up and down for everyone, especially with that chaotic first corner. You did well, really, to get back up to ninth and build a big gap to Riyadi Rumbound. So, well, how are you feeling after that one?
That felt good. I was starting to dread racing against these guys with the long break, but that was that was good. That was fun. Turn one, as always in this track and this car, is going to cause some somewhat chaos. But yeah, I just knew with my past experience in leagues with this car is just you keep it easy on the brakes. But as soon as I seen a car dart up the inside and make it forward, I almost locked the brakes myself and went straight into someone back of someone because of I just did not want to get crashed out, and then it actually worked out because I kind of pulled a switchback maneuver on them and avoided the car that spun. But yeah, and then yeah, the start was crazy, but made a big mistake. I think it was lap 3, and yeah, that was kind of my chance of the podium gone.
What happened on lap 3, out of interest?
Just coming out the Schumacher S is watching the stream back. I think the camera's cut away from it just as I spun. Is coming out the Schumacher S as I hit the curb a bit too hard, and I just lost the rear, and I was stuck in the middle of the track holding my brakes, so I couldn't go forward or back because there was cars all around me. So I got dropped back, like straight to the back of the grid in peak up. But yeah, I managed to climb back, so good result.
In fact, we can see a replay of that right now, Hayden. So there we go. Just killed the curb, and the car went unstable. Oh, so close actually to. Oh, who was that? Wasn't one of the TSRC cars? I think that you just avoided as he was still reversing out of the spin, but he did well to hold the brakes and then get going again. So a scary moment that could have been the end of your race, but in the end, it was the making of you as you picked off the midfield and did at least recover ground to ninth then. So as you say, you must be happy with that.
Yeah, I was quite pleased with that race. I've always liked the peak up, but me and my teammate, which could unfortunately be here, is doing something. So hopefully, me and him can get some good testing next week for the race. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so before we let you go, any questions from Nicholas for Hayden?
Just overall, after that initial first lap, was that a bit more of a mindset of, okay, let's see how we can salvage this, or how can we go on the attack now, or, well, damn.
Well, it was the case of I was stuck behind Matt Acton for God knows how long, and some Rombouts got in front of me, so I just followed him through, got past him, and oh, I think the start of that battle I was 25 seconds away from the leaders, and then the end of it I was like 36. So I lost about 10 seconds to the cars I was battling at lap 1 to 3. So I definitely had the pace, but after I got past them both, it was just about keep my head down and as clean laps as possible and as fast as possible. But yeah, best I could do.
Yeah, well,
Congratulations on your ninth place. And I guess we'll best of luck for Mosport Park in a couple of weeks' time, Hayden.
Thank you very much. See you.
So as we let Hayden Miller depart the commentary box, sorry to cut you off there, Nicholas.
all
Paul
good.
Smith looks like he is waiting for an interview. So let's hear what he has to say about his race. Paul, can you hear us?
Oh, of course I can hear you. Hello.
So I suppose with the way that ended, it's a case of so near yet so far, isn't it, to the back of your teammate Joshua Charrington? But you did triumph in that close battle with yourself and Liam Giles. There were some interesting moments, not least where Liam and the teammate in the Porsche class, Jamie Nuttall, made a bit of contact while Jamie was trying to lap him, resulting in Jamie spinning around. And I think you must have had a good view of that. But in the end, you took advantage. Do you think there was a chance to get Joshua in the end, or did he just have the measure of you?
It was too little too late from me. I was super inconsistent. I'll be honest with you, I'm not happy with how I drove today. I think I can do a lot better than that. But no, it's been a long time since I've done a league in a TCR car, so it's getting dusting the cobwebs off, and as you get older, things start slowing down a little bit in terms of your reactions and that. But no, it was a good fight with Liam. Me and Will, us three, we were having a cracking ding dong. But yeah, Josh just got away a little bit in the start of the race, and that was the gap that at the end lost me the chance of fifth place.
Yeah, certainly. You and Liam put on a really fantastic show. I don't think you were ever more than about half a second apart in the end. I don't think we saw where you made the move. Do you remember how it happened?
It was another thing that happens as you get older. You forget things that have happened.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it was earlier on in the race. I basically, me and him were just swapping places because we were just making our own mistakes, and we took advantage of it. And eventually, we decided, do you know what? Let's just actually work together and try and pull a bit of the gap back. So yeah. I think Liam overall has that slight edge of pace over me. It was just today, I just seem to really sort of click sometimes, but then sometimes not keep that consistency. And but the pit stop cycle, I think that's what got me the place over Liam, because I gained a second in the pit stop cycle over him. I pitted a lap earlier than him, and he had the leaders come through, and that's when Nuttall got into the side of him. So, I think that helped me keep that sixth place in the end.
So you might want to put a check in the mail to Jamie, I guess, for that one.
I don't think he'll appreciate that.
No, I'm being facetious. Don't worry. It obviously wasn't intentional from anyone at Cracked Racing whatsoever. But anyway, Nicholas, do you have any questions for Paul about his race?
Yeah, I actually have a bit of a question regarding having so many teammates. Is it a bit more of a reassurance or a bit more pressure when you're racing with so many teammates in the same class?
I mean, you know what the number one rule of motorsport is, don't you? Which is don't hit your teammate. Well, that's very difficult to do in one TCRs and two around this track. So yeah, it's one of those situations where you're all trying to not trip over each other. But then you got to remember that our team, it's very much we like to work together and get the best results for each other, but we also like to fight each other. We can have so much fun. Me and Liam and Will were having a barrel of laughs at the start of the race. Great, exciting stuff, but wasn't maybe the fastest way to do the race. But well, it was fun. I had a smile on my face.
It's a great spirit to go into the race as well. Always good to hear that.
Well, Paul, you certainly put a smile on our faces, that's for sure. And I love the livery, by the way. Is it purple, bright green, and blue, isn't it? So it's easy to tell you apart from Liam in that battle. So, so we certainly appreciated that from a commentary perspective. But anyway, thanks for putting on a great show, and best of luck for Mosport Park in a few weeks' time, Paul.
Yeah, certainly will. Take care, guys.
All right, so I think Hayden and Paul were the only two that wanted to talk to us. Nicholas, so sadly we won't get to hear from either Alex Kaon or Tom Davidson, our winners. But final thoughts on them: peerless performances, and they're really setting the market down for the next two rounds. I think Davidson, it's going to take quite something to beat Davidson, and Alex Kaon won from, I think it was third in the grid on the end. So even if he doesn't ace qualifying, Alex really was able to build a huge gap in the end in that race.
Yeah, not just that. I think it's also quite good showing of him. Of course, we have the top 24 points as well, and then per class 1 point for the fastest lap. So Alex Kaon is just taking everything he can for this first race. Really good confidence boost, of course, for the rest of the season. Meanwhile, I think for TCR, it's the opposite. Tom Davidson didn't get the fastest lap, so for Boston Fuß is a bit more of a confidence booster because he knows I have the pace. I just got unlucky this time with the battles, with the fighting. Maybe next time I can get the full thing home.
Indeed. And speaking of next time, as hinted, it's at Mosport Park on the 29th of November in a week's time. So my thanks to Mr. Sharp in broadcast direction, to you, Nicholas, for assisting me in commentary, and for you watching. And as my friend James would say, thank you very much for joining us. And, make sure you look up TSRC and maybe try and join the Discord as well, because you never know. We might see you on track some point in the future. Thank you very much for joining us, and bye for now.